All right, we got a special edition episode of the podcast today. Today's episode is going to be a presentation from our Wildland Firefighter Human Performance Summit. Now, what is the Wildland Firefighter Human Performance Summit? It is a free virtual summit that is hosted on the Rugged Athlete app, and it features over 10 presentations from experts in the field of human performance, all with a firefighter background. You've got strength and conditioning coaches like myself, Justin, who's on our staff. Who else you got? You've got Austin Newblum, former smoke jumper, and now is an endurance coach and running coach. You've got friggin' Sophia. She specializes in training female firefighters. You've got Harry Walker, literally the world's strongest firefighter, who's going to be talking about strength and conditioning. Oh, and Adam Gray, buddy of mine who has helped start an entire strength and conditioning program through BLM Nevada, is going to be presenting on how he's helped change the fitness culture where he's at. Nutrition experts, we got JJ Shelley, we got Megan Lautz, we've got some of the top researchers at the university level who study wildland firefighter physiology. Yeah, I don't know, I'm missing people too. Needless to say, it's going to be a insanely value-packed summit, and it's totally free. Like I said, if you're listening to this before May 8th, you can still go sign up for free. The way it works is all these presentations are pre-recorded. So once you go into the app and it hits May 5th, you will have access to all of the presentations and you can listen to them whenever it's most convenient for you. Now, if you're listening to this after May 8th, you can still access all of the presentations. These things are going to live forever on the Rugged Athlete app as part of the Pro membership. So when you join the Pro membership, it's a monthly subscription, but there is a free trial. So there's going to be a link for that as well. You can sign up for it and get access to everything else that's on the Pro membership. All of the programming, 365 days a year of Wildland Firefighter season-specific programming. We've got our on-ramp program on there. We've got micro PT plans for a 1.5 mile run, push-ups, pull-ups improvement. And then we have all of our Rugged Athlete EDU resources. So all of our educational courses, our high performance hiking course, physical preventative maintenance course, which I'm going to talk about in this presentation you're about to hear. Our work capacity development mini course is on there. And then we've got some other resources that we're currently working on that are going to be loaded up onto the Pro membership. So be sure to check that out either way. But with all of that said, let's jump into the presentation for today's episode. This is my presentation, my contribution to the summit. I'm going to be talking about physical preventative maintenance and just how to keep your body strong, healthy, and resilient throughout the entire fire season. Hope you enjoy. All right, in this presentation, I'm going to be covering what I call physical preventative maintenance. And essentially, it's going to be strategies and methods and kind of a big picture overall framework of how to take care of your body. All right, so some specific objectives that we're going to cover in this presentation are starting off by just kind of talking about injuries in general, kind of what they are and the different types of injury mechanisms. I think it's just good information to have as we're going into these specific frameworks on how to prevent and mitigate the risk of injuries. And then we'll talk about the actual PPM framework. So it's a 3-step process. Step 1 is prep tissue. Step 2 is mobilize. Step 3 is reinforce or strengthen. So we'll kind of break down what each one of those are. And we'll just talk about the framework in general and, the kind of the main objective of doing it in this order and why it's structured the way it is. And then we'll kind of switch gears and go a little bit more 30,000 foot view and just talk about periodizing and planning for recovery, just kind of in general. Just strategies that I've used going from being a college athlete to then a professional strength and conditioning coach to a wildland firefighter, and using a lot of those things that I used in sports and athletics to take care of my body there. And then I'll talk about how I've transferred that over into the fire line. Jumping right in, I want to talk about preventative maintenance in the way that we already know it. We do PM for our vehicles every single day. We do it for all of our equipment. And actually, this is an example on the screen here of it's a screenshot from Steele's checklist, like pre work checklist. And you can see this is just what you're seeing is 2.8. I forget how many pages their manual has, but this is just a very small portion of it. And which the point there is just there's a lot of steps. Okay, when you're working with equipment that is, I guess, for lack of a better word, advanced or just as technical as something like a saw or a vehicle, you have to have a lot of steps. And then let's look at what actual, or I guess more practically, for what it looks like on the fire line. Right, we have our pre-shift checks. We want to make sure our saw is ready to go for the beating that it's going to endure throughout the shift. And then, of course, during the shift, we're just continually checking on things to make sure that everything's running, filling it up with gas, with oil. We're checking to make sure chain is sharp. Like, we're doing all these things continuously throughout the shift. And then, of course, you get done with the shift and you go through this giant list of things to do to get it ready for the next shift. So the big question is, or I guess two questions. Well, I guess it's one question. There's two answers. Is what happens if you don't do these checks? First and foremost, your equipment's going to be ineffective. It's not going to work properly, and you're increasing the risk that something goes wrong, something breaks, and then if your equipment doesn't work, you can't really do your job. That's why we have to do all these things. And then of course, you're just increasing the risk from a safety standpoint, from a hazard standpoint. We know, especially with a lot of the equipment we use, if something's not working properly, it is a walking safety hazard. So that's why it's so important. That's why it's so detailed. That's why, you'll see laminated sheets posted up places with all these check boxes, and you have to actually initial or sign to show your supervisor that I did this, I did all these things, I signed it, I dated it. We're making sure nothing's slipping through the cracks, because PM, preventative maintenance, is that important. And so kind of a big overarching theme for this presentation is I want you to take that same mindset that we just spent the last 5 minutes talking about, and apply it to, I'm not even going to say arguably, it is for sure the most important piece of equipment or physical asset that we have out there, and that's our body. So we want to take that same approach that we do to all of our equipment, vehicles, everything, apply it to our body. And just a real quick shout out to my buddies on my old crew there. I put this picture up here on the slide because I think it's a funny symbol of my experience on the fire line, because I always got my massage gun strapped on me at all times. I always keep that thing in the buggy, and it is a game changer. I'm telling you, having something like that where you can just, you get in the buggy, you can just nail your traps after you've been wearing your pack all day, or your quads, your IT bands, and that thing's a game changer. They're not cheap, but they're definitely worth the investment, and you make a lot of friends because everyone wants to come up and use your massage gun. But let's talk about what physical preventative maintenance looks for your body. Everything is really the same. It's just what we do is different. You have your pre-shift checks. I like to call this a physical audit. And this is simply literally just thinking about how your body's feeling. What is sore? What is tight? What is stiff? What hurts? Your energy levels, your overall fatigue levels and stress levels, all these things. You're thinking about it. You're doing a physical audit. Start from your head and go all the way down to your toes. I know for me, in my experience on certain assignments where we're spiked out and we're just getting our ass kicked every shift. You're sleeping on the ground, sleeping in the dirt. Every morning was kind of like this fun game of what is going to hurt today. And it felt like it's different every day. And sometimes it could be just because of the position I slept in, or just whatever we did the day before just made this certain part of my body extra sore. But it seemed like it was always going to be something different. So I had to ask myself this question, because I can't just expect it to be the same that it was yesterday. So that's a big step, doing a physical audit. And then also doing a warm-up. We know, this is common sense by now, that you should warm up before you do a workout. But how many of us actually do any kind of warm-up before that first hike in? Because your hike in, that's like a workout in it of itself. Warm up a little bit, do some stretches, get your body moving, get the blood flowing, and then fuel. Make sure you get some good fuel in your body, some good food, literal food, hydration. Make sure you're starting off your shift, your day, as topped off as you can be. And then intra-shift, it's the same thing, just continually kind of asking yourself, how is my body feeling? Little stretches here and there, making sure you're staying on top of your hydration, your food, all these things. Like just as you're going through the shift, just kind of on one hand, we're thinking about the physical activities that you're doing and those stresses, and then what you're doing to combat those. Then of course, post-shift, getting yourself ready for the next day, the next shift, any kind of recovery, stretching, going to bed on time, nutrition, hydration, all the same stuff. And it's no different. What happens if we don't do these things? We're going to be physically less effective. We still might be able to do the job, check the box, play our part, but how much less productive would we be? And then if, we're talking about like one shift at a time, but, expand it out. Expand it out until September, October, all right? Expand it out until 5, 6, 7 years into your career, or 15, 20 years into your career. Little things add up. They definitely add up. And then just from not necessarily a safety hazard, but it's an injury hazard. Okay, we take care of our body. We do these steps. We're reducing that risk of injury because we're just holding our body. We're putting our body in a position where it can still perform. So that's kind of the overall lens that I want you to view PPM through. All right, it's no different than preventative maintenance with everything else. It's just we're doing it to our body. But before we go into the structure, the steps, the framework, let's talk about what injuries are. The definition that I came up with, I might have stole this from somewhere, I don't even know. It's so when stress on a body part exceeds the capacity that body part can withstand. All right. Stress is not a bad thing. I just want to say that too. Stress is not a bad thing. What's bad is when our body doesn't have the capacity to handle the amount of stress that it's accumulating or handling in the moment. All right. So don't think just stress is bad. We got to avoid stress. Now we want to build the body up to handle certain levels, certain amounts of stress. And when that happens, when the stress exceeds the capacity, kind of one of two things or one of two types of injuries occur. You have acute injuries. That's just like your sudden, your blunt force, your fall, your strains, your sprains, things like that. On the other side, you have your chronic injuries. And that's going to be more gradual. It's not just like a sudden, but these are typically associated with your overuse, your overtraining, your stress fractures. A lot of chronic low back pain falls into this category. Now, I know there's nuance here. Are those chronic injuries preventable? Yes. Are acute injuries preventable? No. It's not as black and white as that. Injuries are very complex. Sometimes it's nearly impossible to really dial down exactly what caused this injury. So I'm not trying to oversimplify this, but I put no for acute injuries because there are times where like you lose your footing and your foot gets caught and then your whole body keeps going the other way and boom, you just tore up your knee. You might do all of the knee strength training, whatever, knee prevention exercises and like still deal with something like that. So we can mitigate the risk through our training. We can reduce the impact that acute injury might have, but it's hard to say they're totally preventable. Chronic injuries are more preventable just because it's more about volume and managing load across, certain or specific days or workouts or, very like short time domains, but also long time domains. It's called acute to chronic workload, which is basically like you want there to be a certain ratio between your kind of total volume over a long period of time and your volume in a short period of time. Essentially, it's a way of thinking about we want to reduce like big spikes in workload. And kind of the most common one that I come across is just like, someone doesn't run, they're not really running, and then all of a sudden they just jump into like 15, 20 miles a week. And then they get shin splints or their knee starts bugging them. They're starting to get like some IT band pain. Really? It's just because they did too much too soon, right? That's a super common injury mechanism. It's just too much too soon. So managing the volume, making sure you have smooth progressions with both volume and intensity is a super easy way to just reduce the risk of chronic injuries. I don't want to get too caught up on injuries, like specifically. This could be a whole presentation in and of itself, just going into the depths of this, but I want to talk about the actual PPM framework. So I came up with this myself just because I needed it. Like I needed a system that I could easily follow to take care of my body. And, coming from my background, being a strength and conditioning coach, I'm fortunate because I have this massive exercise library in my head. I've been programming for 20 years. More than half of my life has been spent designing programs, writing training programs. So I've got this wealth of information. I mean, I've forgotten so many exercises that I've done because I just have done so many. And I like to think about it like a toolbox. Like each exercise is a tool. And I have this big toolbox full of all these tools. And when it comes to PPM, it's really about figuring out what tool I need to take out of the toolbox to use for this specific job, for this task. So while we're going through this, I think a simple way to do it is just to use like one example and kind of stick with it. So we're going to use the example of knee specific physical preventative maintenance. So we're going to be focusing on one joint, one part of the body, the knee, but you can the idea is you take this framework and apply it to whatever part of the body you need and pull all these tools out of your toolbox, all these exercises, all these stretches, all these mobility drills, all of these foam rolling moves, whatever, this giant list of tools, and apply it to your knee, your low back, your shoulder, your neck, whatever. You just apply it to what you need. Hopefully that makes sense. And then last thing before we jump into it, I'm giving the brief overview, even though this is not a super brief presentation. But I say that because I put together an entire course on this. And I go more in depth on kind of like each part of the structure, each part of the framework, and then provide specific, like I said, I'm talking about knees. I have a whole module on just knee. So it goes in depth on like knee injuries, how to prevent knee injuries, or at least mitigate the risk of knee injuries. I've got one for the lower leg / shin ankle complex, one for the low back, one for the shoulder. So modules and presentations on just those body parts specifically. And then, like I said, a big exercise library for each one. So I think total, if you add up all 4 of those, there's well over 100 exercises, strength exercises, mobility drills, foam rolling movements that are all specific to, that part of the body. And it's laid out in this structure too. So you got all your tissue prep, mobilizations, and your strength exercises. It's just called Physical Preventative Maintenance Course. It's available on the app, on the Rugged Athlete app as like a standalone course. And then also it's just part of our pro membership. So if you are interested, you can check those out. Not trying to just make a sales plug, but I put it together because it's helped a lot of people. And if this presentation helps you, I think the course will help you even more. So you can check that out. But let's go into the first step, prep tissue. So this is just your self-myofascial release. This is your massage. Examples here are literally massage therapy, like going to a masseuse, getting a massage done. It's your foam rolling. It's your lacrosse ball, your tennis ball, your golf ball. It's your percussive therapy. That's your massage gun. If you've ever seen it too, they have vibrating foam rollers, vibrating like they're bigger than lacrosse balls, but they serve the same purpose. They're just bigger and they vibrate. Those all fall under that category. Basically what we're trying to do here is 2 things. We're trying to increase blood flow, which massage does that. And then we're trying to reduce neural tension. So just kind of eliminate some tension that could possibly be there from the nervous system. Now, I will say on that one, you have to have some time under tension there. Okay, that nervous tension doesn't just go away if you sit on a foam roller for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 seconds. It takes time. But foam rolling and soft tissue work, all this stuff does help those 2 things. And what those 2 things do when combined is they increase range of motion. So essentially, we're prepping the tissue to increase range of motion and basically get that part of our body ready for the next 2 steps. That's why this is step number 1. All right. And now a quick point on this, and I'll kind of just give the example of how this works for the knee. Because like I said, we're sticking to that as an example. But we want to focus on the tissues, the muscles, the part of the bodies right above and right below the joint that we're specifically targeting. So in this case, the knee, we are hitting the quads, the adductors, the hamstrings, maybe getting some IT band in there, maybe even getting hip flexor. It's far away from the knee, but it's all kind of it's close enough, you can make the argument. So we're going to hit those with the foam roller, with the massage gun, with whatever you got. And then we're going to go below the joint. So we're going to hit the calves, the soleus, get the Achilles a little bit. And the reason we do that is because, a lot of these muscles, the tendons either connect directly to the joint or they actually cross over and connect on the other side of the joint. So by hitting all of those muscle groups, you're kind of hitting everything that's connected to that joint. So if there's one muscle in there that's got some issue, some dysfunction, some problem somewhere, and it is connected to or across that joint, that dysfunction is going to impact how the joint functions. Okay, there's going to be that trickle down effect there's going to be that compensation effect. So we're trying to find the source of the problem, which usually isn't the actual joint. I mean, I don't want to say usually, like that's almost too general of a statement. But my point is, a lot of knee problems are not actually knee problems. They are a quad or IT band problem or a calf problem that is just manifesting and showing itself at the knee joint. Low back is a big one too, because it's right in the middle of your body and so many things are above and below it that a lot of problems at the low back are just compensations from other problems. Hips, thoracic spine, you name it. There's a bunch. So that's kind of the point. And that's step one. Okay. We want to prep the tissue. Step two, right after we do that, is we want to mobilize the joint. So again, we're doing knee specific mobility or flexibility stretches to those muscles that we just hit. So for here, we're focusing on, again, if we're going back to the knee example, we're doing some quad stretches, some hamstring adductor mobility drills, calf stretches, and just things to get the knee moving. Okay, trying to get as much flexion extension as we can. And you can do this with a few different ways. Passive and active ranges of motion, hit it both with static stretches, more dynamic ranges of motion. And the kind of the point there is we want to hit this from as many angles as we can. Again, sometimes we don't really know exactly what's going on. We just know that something's a little off. My knee's feeling a little not great. Like I don't want to call it an injury, but something's going on. And we just want to try to kind of do as many things as we can. And, hopefully one of those things sticks, right? And actually that just reminded me, I forgot to mention this earlier. One of the main reasons why I put the injury slide at the beginning is, and I forgot to say this, even though it's like the main reason. I think a lot of firefighters and military, same thing, they all kind of fall under the same category, don't really know what injuries are. Because of the type of person that is drawn to this profession and these fields are so hard charging type 1 people, they think injuries are like, I have to get surgery or something's broken, like literally broken and has to get surgically repaired. And yes, that is an injury, but injuries it's not that black and white. There's a spectrum. And if something is hurting you enough to where you're having to change how you do your job, you're having to even add a lot of stuff like this in specifically because something's bothering you, that is technically an injury. Okay. It's just not a surgery, which is fine. So I say that because I have had people tell me like, oh yeah, I don't have any injuries. And then when I keep asking them the questions, they go down this rabbit hole of all the stuff on their body that hurts and that's bothering them. And I'm like, well, you actually do got some injuries going on. Like you got some issues. We need to do some PPM on you. So I forgot to mention that earlier, but I want to throw that in before I keep going. So let's mobilize. Again, I don't want to over complicate this. It literally is just mobility and stretching. If you go onto the course and like I said, you'll see examples for each body part. You'll see a ton. So a ton of different passive examples, active examples, static examples, dynamic examples. That library is pretty massive. So a lot of different things to try out there. And then the third step is reinforce, aka strengthen. Again, don't want to overcomplicate this. This is literally just you're doing strength exercises. Okay. And this can literally just be like your typical strength workouts. The only difference is this is very targeted to a part of the body that you just did other things for. Strength is resiliency. This is what is going to help your body stay strong, stay resilient, stay healthy, be able to handle the forces and loads that are put on not only muscular tissues, but like connective tissues as well, your tendons, your ligaments, your bones, your fascia, all that stuff. We want to be strong. We do that by increasing load progressively. Like I said earlier, we don't want to do too much too soon. And then I threw a couple other examples on there that I want to mention. Again, a lot of them are actually on the course, but focusing on time under tension and isometrics are game changers here. Basically, what I mean by that is what we can do is after we just did tissue prep and mobilization, now we should have a bigger ranges of motion, right? That's what we just got our body ready for. Now that we increase our range of motion, we can focus on strengthening our joints in those newly acquired ranges of motion. So for example, isometrics. What is an isometric? An isometric is literally just you're not moving. Your muscles are still contracting, but there's no lengthening or shortening of the muscle tissues. There's no, the joint angles are the same. So there's no like joint angles going smaller or or wider. Oh, easy examples of this are like planks, isometrics, and then wall sits. So wall sit is an example I like to use because you just usually it makes sense for people. Let's say you're doing a wall sit, you're practically standing up. Like your knees are only bent a little bit. Like you're pretty high up on the wall. You could probably stand there all day, right? You are doing an isometric, but it's not that hard. But we increase the joint angle. Now we get into deeper ranges of motion and we start to slide down that wall. We get to now where we're parallel, our hips are even with our knee. Muscles are lengthened, ranges of motion are deeper. Not going to be able to hold that as much because there's more stress on those tissues. And you can even go a little bit deeper. You start to go ass to grass. It's a lot harder. Okay. It's no different than any kind of back squat, right? If you squat low or only a half squat, you can squat heavier weight. You go ass to grass. You can't squat as much weight. You're just not as strong. What I'm saying is common sense. We know this, but how I'm saying it in this application or in this kind of application is you can target those deeper ranges of motion and then just hold them. Okay, just hold a deep wall squat. Just get into a deep lunge and hold it. You can play around with this, get creative, but essentially the main point is play around with isometrics at different ranges of motion, and that's going to get you that time under tension, which is important. Last note on that, I guess, is if you think about, we'll talk about squats real quick. Let's just say you did body weight squats, 3 sets of 10, 1 time a week. Do you think over the course of 2, 4, 8, 12 weeks that you would get stronger? I mean, maybe like a fraction, a little bit, but you're not going to make massive strength gains by doing 3 sets of 10 bodyweight squats 1 time a week. Yeah, we know that's not enough volume. Okay, there's only 30 reps. That's not enough to move the needle. We know that's definitely not enough load. If you're trying to get stronger, you've got to add load. Okay, that's how you get stronger. All right, we know this, but we don't apply this same logic a lot of times to our mobility or our stretching. We do a 20 to 30 second hamstring stretch at the end of a workout and do that a couple times a week if we don't skip it, first of all. And then we wonder why our hamstrings don't ever get more flexible because there's no time under tension. There's no load. There's no progression there. I want you to think about that same stuff when you're thinking about these mobility exercises and doing anything that is more strength training or isometrics in deeper range of motion. So you're combining strength and mobility. Don't be afraid to add load. Don't be afraid to add volume, time under tension, intensity. We know all of these things are how you get stronger. It's how you get more mobility too, more range of motion too. That is kind of the PPM framework in a nutshell. It is important to do these in this order. They're put in this order for a reason. We increase the blood flow to increase or help prep the joint to increase range of motion. And then we specifically do things that are going to increase that range of motion by moving that joint in those ranges of motion. And then we strengthen. Okay. It's important to do those in that step. Now, what I will say from a programming standpoint, there's a couple of routes you can take. You can do these as like standalone workouts or warm-ups even, where you just kind of do like 1 or 2 exercises for prep tissue, 1 or 2 for mobility, 1 or 2 for strengthen, and you're good to go. I've done these before where I'll do 3 or 4 for my shoulders and then 3 or 4 for my low back. And so I'm turning this more into like my whole workout. My whole PT for that day is PPM, and I'm just hitting a couple of different parts of the body. And then the last thing I want to mention on this framework is you can use this both proactively and reactively. Reactively is kind of what we normally do, like, oh, my knee's bugging me. I need to do some stuff to help it recover and help me get through this day and through this shift, through this workout, whatever. But we can also implement this framework proactively. If we know what we're about to do and we know it's going to stress certain parts of the body and certain muscles, and I'm like, I look at this workout, I'm like, okay, my quads are going to be wrecked after this, or my shoulders are about to take a freaking beating. We can do some PPM specifically for those parts of the body. That's going to help reduce just some of the overall stress and just prepare our body to handle it more. So play around with that. It takes some planning, takes some thinking about the demands you're about to do, but it's a game changer if you can start to take a more proactive approach to this framework. All right, switching gears real quick. Kind of want to get I kind of want to go more big picture to finish off this talk. I want to go more 30,000 foot view and just help you get kind of a better big picture understanding, because I think that will help when you start to get more narrow and start to get more isolated with doing some PPM for like your ankle, right? You know what I mean? Because a lot of this big picture stuff is obviously going to impact the narrow aspects. And so what I have here, what you're seeing is kind of my recovery pyramid that I put together. There's 3 components. I just lied to you. There's 4. I don't know why I said 3. There's clearly 4 there. 4 components, 4 pillars to this. We've got sleep, which is at the bottom. It's the biggest. It is the foundation. It is the most important. That's why it's on the bottom. Sleep is what everything else has been built on top of. Then you got your mindset, your nutrition, and your training. So we'll go into all 4 of these. I already mentioned the proactive versus reactive. I got ahead of myself. I'm just going to admit it. So I don't need to go into that anymore. And then these are out of order, which is really bugging me, but it's okay. We'll just go to mindset. Mindset could be a lot of different things. And it's different things for different people. It could be meditation. It could be just kind of general mindfulness, breath work. I know some firefighters that do Wim Hof. It could be insight timer, stuff like that. It could be anything that is in the mindfulness category. It could be positive self-talk. Gotta be careful with that. Negative self-talk is also a thing out there, and it can be, just gotta be careful. It could be prayer. If you're more of a faith-based person, prayer is personally my go-to when it comes to this. Everyone has something that works for them, but you gotta find what that is. And sometimes you gotta experiment a little bit, try something new, get out of your comfort zone. And some of these things might not work the first time you try it. I do recommend giving it a couple different tries, even if it didn't work the first time, and maybe change up the environment a little bit, change up the timing. I don't know, make some adjustments. And if you try meditation for 3, 4, 5 times and you're like, I can confidently say this is not for me, then great. Now you learned what doesn't work, and you can dial it down. So the point is, our mindset is incredibly important, not only from like a mental health standpoint and like, dealing with like certain things that you might have to go to counseling or see a therapist for, but also from like a mental fitness standpoint. Like when we're talking like more performance based, more being able to literally do your job at a high level, perform at a high level under certain types of stress. I shared my background being a college athlete and working in professional strength and conditioning with pro athletes. So I was exposed to a lot of sports psychology and seeing professional athletes, and myself, I'm pretty far away from that, being a Division III baseball player, but still, shout out to D3 athletes. If you're competing in a stressful environment, trying to win a championship or something like that, you have to be able to remain calm and cool under pressure. And there's a lot of things with mindfulness, meditation, self-talk, prayer, all of these examples, and then others that aren't listed, that are going to help you perform in those conditions. And those conditions exist throughout this profession as well. This one's super important. That's why it is second, right above sleep. But let's talk about sleep. Now, again, I could do a whole presentation on this topic alone. But what I want to focus on here is there's really 2 components to sleep. There's sleep quantity, literally how many hours of sleep you got. And then there's sleep quality. So out of however many hours you got, how much of that was quality sleep? How much deep sleep did you get into? How much REM sleep did you get into? How much was light sleep? How many times did you wake up? Or were you kind of tossing and turning? Things like that. So those are the 2 variables that we're trying to improve. Now with this job, and especially a lot of the structural firefighters I work with or have worked with in the past, the sleep quantity part is very, very uncontrolled, right? Especially if you're at a regular kind of Schedule A station and you're running calls all throughout the night. Yeah. You can't really control the sleep quantity part. Now you can do things like naps and different things like that. Those are valuable in certain contexts. But usually what's more controllable is the quality part. And so I'd listed a couple of different examples there, like sleep masks, earplugs, white noise machines, blackout curtains. These are small things, but they do help with sleep quality. They just do. Now, some of these are you might try them and you're like, wearing a sleep mask is just uncomfortable. I actually sleep worse with it. Okay, then don't wear one. You don't have to. But I do recommend maybe trying a couple of these and just seeing seeing what helps your sleep quality. But the biggest one, save this for last, the biggest one by far is just limiting your late night phone usage. It's literally just putting your phone down, not scrolling before you go to bed, and just going to bed. Just go to sleep. Like literally just go to sleep. That's the biggest thing. Because if you actually do the math, if you add it up, it makes a big difference. Just 10 minutes of scrolling before you go to sleep is over an hour of sleep per week that you could have got, but you didn't. That adds up to, almost 2 hours a month. And that's just being very generous also, I must say. A lot of us are doing well over 10 minutes. So just put the phone down. Nutrition, I'm not even going to touch on this because we got some experts that are going to hit this topic very hard. And then training, also not going to really touch on this because we already kind of have, and the other experts are going to touch on this during this summit as well. But I will say, this is even coming from me, a strength and conditioning coach. I'm biased. I put it at the top because if those other three things, your sleep, mindset, and nutrition aren't there, it just doesn't matter as much. You can kind of use it as a crutch, but you can only get away with that for so long. You got to take care of those other stuff. When it comes to your actual days off, okay, I want to talk about this real quick. There's a couple of routes you can go. You can go the rest route, which is literally just rest. It might just mean you sleep extra, you get caught up on that sleep debt. It might just mean you have a lazy Netflix couch potato day. And I will say this, sometimes that is the best route. Sometimes that is exactly what you need. You just have to rest. You just need to sleep. That might be what you need. On the other hand, you might actually need to get your body moving, do some more active recovery, go on a walk, do some yoga, do some foam rolling, go get a massage, go do a sauna/cold plunge session, put it on Instagram. You're an influencer, go for a light swim. These are all just examples. But kind of the main point is you're getting your body moving, getting the blood flowing. Sometimes that's the best option. You kind of just have to know for you in your situation, dealing with whatever stresses you dealt with, how your body's feeling, what's going to be the best course of action. But just know these are just examples and you just have to pick the right route. I just got a couple more slides, so stay with me because this is the most important slide, arguably, in this entire presentation. And it's this idea, this concept of developing self-awareness on these 4 categories. And I like to steal from Garmin. I've got a Garmin watch. It's got my body battery on here. And actually, just for fun, let's see what my body battery is today. I actually slept a lot last night. My body battery is at 48 out of 100. That's not bad, but for how much I slept last night, I slept 9 hours last night. That's a lot for me. I would think my body battery would be higher, but I guess that just means it was a lot lower going into last night. So I needed the sleep. So I stole this body battery idea and applied it to this recovery pyramid that I already made. And essentially how I think about it is this. Each one of these has its own battery out of 100. And each day, that number is going to be different. And it's going to be a certain number when you wake up. Your sleep, in this example, sleep's just the lowest. So sleep might be 48 out of 100. Nutrition is 60 out of 100. 80 out of 100. Your training or just how your body's feeling in general, stuff like that, is a 90. This is just a visual to kind of see that things can be different. So in this example, with sleep being the lowest battery, nutrition also being the second lowest, what I would do in this situation is be like, okay, my body's feeling good. My mindset's pretty good. I need to prioritize my nutrition and I need to prioritize rest. That's what's going to help me kind of get those batteries recharged. It's one thing. The first step is just kind of knowing where your body batteries are or where your batteries are for each one of these. The second step is knowing what to do with that information. Now, I want to touch on this too. There's a couple of different ways that you can record or understand your battery. You can do it the objective way and literally use your Garmin or your Whoop strap or your Aura ring or your Apple Watch, I don't know, whatever you have, usually is going to have some sort of objective readiness score or recovery score with it. And you can use that. That's valuable, helpful information. Sometimes it's not always most accurate and you have to go off of your own intuition. That's fine. But sometimes, you just have to literally think about your body. How was my sleep last night? How has my nutrition been? How's my body feeling? How's my soreness levels, my energy levels, my overall mood? Think about these things when you wake up, throughout the day, at the end of the day. And the more you do this, the higher levels of self-awareness you're going to gain. And you're just going to more intuitively know where your battery is at for each one of these things. And it's going to really help you for when you need to pull specific tools out of your toolbox. I guess in this instance, you could say like chargers out of your toolbox and recharge yourself. I almost want to call this a skill. Like it is a skill in being able to accurately know where your batteries are and then how to recharge them. And then kind of my last point on this is think about your phone, because obviously you have your phone every day. You know, you charge your phone every night so that when you wake up it's at 100%, and then throughout the day as you're using it, the battery starts to drain. But we know there's certain things that make that battery drain a lot faster. One is just your phone being old. Once that phone hits 3, 4, 5 years, especially if you're really holding on to it, or that new iPhone update comes out, it's like, man, now my battery is just like dying on me crazy for no reason. Our bodies are kind of the same way. The older we get, the more time we have in the job, the more beat up our body gets. It's going to lose that charge a little bit faster. You also think about like you go out and or you're using your phone for a lot. Like you got maps pulled up, you got Spotify pulled up because you're listening to the Rugged Athlete podcast on repeat. You got all these things that are kind of draining the battery of your phone, and then you might actually have to charge your phone in the middle of the day just to make it last until you go to sleep. Again, our bodies are no different. There's going to be certain things that we do that's going to drain that battery extra fast to the point where you might have to recharge in the middle of the day with one of these four categories. Kind of use that same mindset, that same idea, and apply it to our body. Hopefully all that resonated. This is how it makes sense in my brain, and this is how I would use it on the fire line as I'm keeping track of how my body is holding up. And it really has really helped me. I mean, it's been an absolute game changer for me personally. So that's why I really wanted to talk about this, and hopefully it makes sense to you. You can use that this season as you're kind of trying to train that skill of awareness. Last slide that I have on here is just all about investing in your physical health, investing in your body. And I love to use this example of LeBron James in this article that came out in 2018. So we're talking almost a decade ago at this point. But this article came out and it was talking about how LeBron spends $1.5 million on his body every year. And, this is stuff like, he's got his own strength coach, his own physical therapist, chiropractor, masseuse. He's got like the hyperbaric chamber. He's got the Normatec boots. He's got he's a billionaire. Like this is chump change for him. But the point of this article was just showing all the different things that this professional athlete is doing to take care of his body, to get him through, NBA seasons. And it's because his body is how he makes money. If his body doesn't work, he can't go out and play. And I think that's so important because that's the same with our job. If our bodies don't work, like we can't go out there and get on the fire line, and we can't go get overtime, and we can't do our job. We can't make as much money. And so we're not going to drop 1.5 mil. Don't get caught up in the numbers. But the point is, like, we should be investing money into our body. We should be investing time into our body. Learn how to take care of your body. Learn how to do physical preventative maintenance. Go invest in a massage gun. Those things are awesome. They're expensive, but I think they're worth it. Go invest in a nutrition coach. Go invest in a strength and conditioning coach. Go get a massage. Treat yourself. Like all these different things. Invest in your physical health because that ROI is massive. You're going to get a huge return on the time and money you put into taking care of your body. The more we talk about stuff like this, the more it's going to destroy this young man's game narrative and this narrative that you just do this job, like your knees aren't going to work, your back's not going to work. I know this job sucks. It's hard. It's going to break your body down to a point. But LeBron's, I'm not even a LeBron guy, but he's a great example. He's like 41 and he's still out there playing at a high level. And I think it's a good example of he invested a lot in his body and that ROI is paying off. So that's physical preventative maintenance. That's taking care of your body. Hope this presentation helped give you some practical strategies and methods that you can apply. But like I said, if you are interested in diving deeper and you want access to, a list of 100+ exercises, go check out our course, Physical Preventative Maintenance, on our pro membership as well. It's just part of the memberships. You can sign up for a free week trial and even just check that out. But hopefully that helped. You can always reach out directly to myself if you have any other questions on any of these topics specifically.